Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us for the JS Mindset Weekly Call. My name's Denny, and today is Saturday, September 14th, 2019. On the call today are the boys, Jim Sinclair, Bill Holter, and Famous Dave. Guys, Congress has returned to work, or what passes as the business of the people, but for all intents and purposes, there continues to be nothing happening in the House of Representatives. Meanwhile, in Europe, Mario Draghi's term as president of the European Central Bank is over at the end of this month. I think it's October 1st. We get a new president. But Draghi is absolutely accelerating quantitative easing right now. The Department of Justice has green-lighted the indictment and prosecution of Andrew McCabe with indications that this will be the first of many of former players in the FBI, CIA, and Obama administration being held accountable for alleged crimes of sedition and treason. The big question, of course, is will there ever be equal justice for all, or if the two-tier justice of it's better to be rich and guilty than innocent and poor system we have lived with for so many years. The candidates for president from the Democrat side continue to spew an affront to the Bill of Rights, and the administration canceled a secret meeting with Taliban at Camp David. This is the news of the week. So to say that there's a lot going on, of course, is quite an understatement. And for those of us who are watching and not so patiently waiting for the precious metals markets to show some strength, we're just not getting any satisfaction whatsoever. I think I speak for all four of us to share with you that this is truly a game of patience. And if you're listening, you know that the problem with patience is that there is nothing to reassure you and to support your decision so long ago to invest in alternatives to dollars and dollar-based assets. But you've done the smart thing, and you're getting zero satisfaction that your decision was and is still sound. So we, too, understand how frustrating this decision was and still is sound. You know, who knows in the heart of hearts that this depressed situation cannot continue. But just know, illogical markets can continue much longer than anybody ever dreamed. And so the situation is that we are all right, really right on this one, but we're right early. And when you're right early, you're a target, and you're usually frustrated and tend to be talked out of your position. So keep your heads. The resolution to the upside is so very, very close, and you will most certainly be proven right and probably rewarded very, very handsomely. The whole idea of these weekly calls is to give you some other things to think about. You know, your investments, your analysis of current events, your glimpse of what things might look like in the not-too-distant future. But please remember, we're not giving you investment advice. We're just trying to give you another perspective, reassurance of what the economic world can look like, just to add to your own perspective ahead. As always, thanks for investing in the premium side of JS Mindset. You have access to Bill's writings and some of the clearest set of thoughts and perspectives on current financial events from not only Bill, but also Dave and Jim. Jim, I'm starting with you this morning. If anybody has a lot of experience of being right, but having to show patience again and again and again, it's you, Jim Sinclair. For the listener, is there any reason right now to flinch, to reduce precious metal holdings, to sell mining stocks? What do you think, Jim?
Conviction without patience turns into fear and emotion. Conviction without patience. One of the great lessons in investing came from Jesse Livermore, a partner of my father's, and therefore directly to me through my teacher and master and teacher. When you're right, you stick to your guns. But the key to that is right. We could go over every fundamental characteristic and discuss it for the next few weeks and continually. There is no question about the economic right of being positive on precious metals. We live in a very strange world, much different than you guys have ever seen in your life. And bear in mind, I come out of the 40s and 50s, and I was old enough in the 50s, I was a teenager. I could think. So I remember what a non-complicated world was. Yeah, still with politicians, but as Truman, you got men like Truman who said very simply that if you were a politician and had a house like Pelosi, you're a criminal. And the guy who, when he left the White House, walked out with his bags, he and his wife, and got in a taxi cab. And it was wonderful that when he got to the station, there were supporters of his and people who appreciated the hard decisions he had to make, all in there, some thousands of them, wishing them well as he went home to become a haberdasher again. We don't have that now. We have what you see on the stage. It's a disgrace. Total, complete disgrace. There's not a statesperson there. Not one. And as a president, we have an extraordinary, controversial guy, but a man who loves to fight and loves America. But it's not going to be an easy road. China, my experience with the Chinese is don't walk away, run away. Contracts mean nothing. Signing an MOU in the State House is a waste of time. And don't ever try and win a court case in Beijing. So the breakdown that we have is that the man who is presently president will have to win unless America is to go totally Venezuela. And we already heard last night, even though it's being denied today, that a cop will arrive at your door if you happen to have an automatic rifle that looks scary. Okay, it doesn't have to be AK-47, Kalashnikov, or whatever. All it has to do is be semi-automatic and look scary. That's what they said. And he didn't say anything like, please, or may I buy your gun? We heard from a mayor of a child mayor of a city last night that he would send force to take away your weapons. The Constitution has suffered so badly that you have to ask yourself, how many of us are left who really realize that's the foundation of the finest country in the world and the greatest freedom and greatest wealth ever created? So what I'm saying to you is I understand that you're getting into an emotional state because that, even though you've been quite patient, you're getting real tired. And I know from you that you've heard it all before, and there's not a whole lot we can tell you historically, fundamentally, economically, to make you any more convinced you're right, but you're sick of waiting. Stop. Have courage. Take the advice of Bert and Jesse. When you're right, you stand tight. You stand firm. You hold on, and you win. That's some of our present best investors have found that out. We live in a world where the rule of law is a joke, where our jurisprudence system, although we think it's good, is a banana republic. There may be some changes coming, but what I just said is what is at this moment. And the beneficiary to all of that will be the only thing that has been a beneficiary to situations like that for 2,500 years. And that is the standards, the things that don't change, the things that guarantee wealth, the things that guarantee retirement, that guarantee that what you've earned in life you keep, and it grows in buying power. Hold on. Don't let emotions get you. Every single thing I have in the world, everything, is in my company. Bar nothing. Everything. And and if I could invent more money, I'd only continue increasing my position in a precious metals entity or a true representative of base metals out of the U.S., outside, with a corporation in Alberta, but no operations of any real nature outside of on this continent. Stay firm, and you will be magnificently rewarded. That's my answer.
Dave, with the news about the pending prosecution of Obama-era leaders in the FBI, CIA, and the White House, Dave, do you see anything or have you read anything to indicate that it's finally happening?
Denny, I look at things differently than everybody else in the sense that I see a lot of theater. I don't see a lot of action. And as an example, let's just touch on 9/11. An enormous amount of theater again this week, no action. After 18 years, I don't expect to see any action. Do I know the truth? I mean, I read this morning an article from an aeronautical engineer who is also a pilot on how it is mathematically impossible for any of the airplane events that we were told that took place to take place. I look at, go back to Iraq. We watched Blackwater smoke civilians. I mean, smoke civilians like it was a pumpkin shoot. Nobody went to jail. We had these big show trials. They were going to be convicted. Oh, look, they're finally going to put them in jail. Oh, look, the cases have all been overturned. Maybe one guy went to jail. We have very wealthy people who have obviously rigged the education system and the admissions for their children. Oh, my God, they're going to put these people in jail. We're finally going to bust this up. 14 days? 14 days? I sent you an article during the week. 7,400 Palestinians have been shot in the last year. We can't get an ounce of news coverage on it. But in Hong Kong, those protesters better not be hurt by the Chinese. I believe 99 9/10% of what the American public gets is theater. In Russia, they would have called it Pravda years ago. So no, I don't expect to see anything come out of that. And we'll have another show trial. We'll have maybe this. We'll have maybe that. In the 60-something years that I have been alive and witnessed this show, you know what I come away with every time? Saying the more things stay the same, the more things stay the same. So that's my answer to that one. I'm not looking for any bombshells here. You know, and I'll use as an example, I read President Trump's speech at the 9/11, and oh my God, and I have weapons, and those terrorists better look out. Well, what's he going to do? Bomb the CIA headquarters or maybe the Mossad headquarters? Because in my mind, these airplane stories are nothing but airplane stories, and there is no logical person who could look at the facts and believe anything the government has told them about this whole event. So I have very little hope that that's going to change anytime soon.
Question, if you don't mind.
Go.
When you say airplane incidents, are you referring to the bank and angle of the airplanes that supposedly were flown by students who didn't know how to land them and actually hit the World Trade Center, or the recent and constant flybys we're having, a la Top Gun, where it's canopy to canopy, which are called close encounters?
That's exactly what I'm getting at, Jim. Anybody who reads the facts, there is no way these individuals who couldn't fly a Cessna took over jets and flew them unable to see their targets. I mean, there's not a person in the world who could just jump behind a jet and say, oh my God, look, there's the World Trade Center. You couldn't see it. You
couldn't hit it. I'm a pilot, and I'm telling you couldn't, at an angle like that, pull that off. That was magnificent, and that was mechanical.
Well, and the same thing with the Pentagon. You have a massive jet that flew above the ground at 40 feet. The aerodynamics...
cruise missile.
Yeah, the only engine that they found was a missile engine.
Right. So my point is, Denny, I am so used to just being fed story after story after story after story after story. People are going to have to excuse me, but I have no belief system left in any of our institutions, which is, again, what has brought me to precious metals over the years, because the only thing that I could trust is what I could hold in my hands, or I could stash someplace and have an independent auditor check it regularly.
Bill, Draghi is leaving.
It needs to be added that's the University of Alaska, which we talked about, I think, last week. I posted the article. That has gotten zero coverage.
Which means it's probably 100% correct.
Right. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about sending that to Kate Daly from Fox. I was, for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months, I was a weekly or every other week guest on her show. And the moment I said something about Building 7, that was it. I was shut down. So I was thinking about sending that article to her and tell her, send it to your editor.
Or just get in touch with her again and get back on there and speak the truth, not necessarily about the most controversial part, but how about the economy over the next 12 months?
Bill, let's talk about Draghi leaving. On his way out the door, he said that the European Central Bank would be buying $22 billion worth of bonds each month going forward. And at the same time, rates have gone negative. So, Bill, put this together for us. ECB is buying up the bonds, and they're soon all to be negative yields. What's that going to mean, Bill?
Okay, well, first off, they can only do that for 12 months because there's only that amount of bonds left that they can buy. I mean, the product doesn't exist, unless you have more debt come to market, which there will be more debt. But you're talking about sovereign treasuries that are already busted. Interesting, this week, about $2.5 trillion of the $17 trillion in negative yielding debt went positive. And just to give you an idea of how volatile, once you get to 0% interest rates, look at the Austrian bonds. Literally in about a 10-day period of time, they've dropped 20% in value. They're 100-year bonds at a negative rate, and they lost 20% of capital in about a week and a half. My thought process is this thing is going to blow up on them because interest rates are going to go positive. People are going to figure out that the currency itself is no good, and you're going to see sales of debt, and that's what's going to push rates. You're going to have a panic out of currencies, which thus out of the sovereign treasuries.
Jim, let's tie on to that just a little bit. The U.S. has seen what the ECB, European Central Bank, is doing, and Trump's trying to put pressure on the Federal Reserve to act quicker and lower rates. And I'm reading a tweet that I'm looking at right now. European Central Bank, acting quickly, cuts rates 10 basis points. They are trying and succeeding in depreciating the euro against a very strong dollar, hurting U.S. exports. And the Fed sits and sits and sits. They get paid to borrow money while we are paying the interest. Jim, is this going to be a mess or what?
It's a tariff war. The ultimate tariff is depreciate your currency. It's a tariff on everything. So, and a tariff is a tax that always slams its way back to the originator of the tariff. That just is reality. It's an axiom. The imposition of a currency depreciation is a fire sale on goods and services produced by the country that currency represents. So if you feel like having a tariff, you don't sit around and put it on wine and this and that and the other thing. Just depreciate your currency. Nobody thinks a deficit anywhere now matters, but take a look at the deficits that are being built up because of this and because of the wild spending. And recognize that that's the key that will take big money away and out of the dollar, seeking something that will be a more permanent storehouse of value. And storehouse of value is not necessarily a currency. So the idea that gold is a currency is yes, it's a practical idea. Yes, it has been. But what really is a storehouse of value? So the argument is we're in a tariff war, and it's a beaut, and it's all over. And once that realization comes on, then look at the USDX not as an index telling you what the value of the euro is versus the dollar, but a bag of really awful fiat currency all falling down to the bottom, with the one falling the slowest being quoted the highest. Don't get carried away by the quote on the dollar on the USDX. Okay?
All right.
It's a product of a wild tariff war we're in. And when China did things to adjust the value of their currency, they came back to, and I don't know if our president even realized it, and put a tariff on every product we make. Every product. So we are in the middle of a currency situation, which is what we have always, for many years, said would be the key element in the final valuation of gold once any delivery contract failed. And that is the whole story.
Dave, let's
We're
talk
in the
about...
middle of a war. And somebody's asking me, is there going to be a war?
Dave, the trade negotiations are the most on-again, off-again situation I've seen since a teenager's love life. Up to this point, I've taken the contrarian view. I've been reinforced with your attitudes towards this, but meaning that they say we're close, I assume we're not. When they say we're pretty far apart, I assume it's about to happen. Now the Chinese are coming to Washington. The agricultural tariffs are off, and I just can't get a bead on any of this. Dave, any thoughts on the trade negotiations at this point?
Yeah, exactly what you said. They do nothing but tell us stories. They're trying to pump the stock market. Let's put it this way. The economy was rolling over long before the trade wars even came along. The trade wars are a sideshow. I mean, to watch the market get jerked back and forth with every single tweet and every single story, we're going to have a deal, we're not going to have a deal, they're going to buy some stuff, they're not going to buy some stuff. Let them buy everything they want. It's not going to change the fact that the United States is broke. It's not going to change the fact that we're running $1 trillion deficit. It's not going to change the fact that all our pensions are underfunded. It's not going to change the fact that derivatives are written all over the place and are ready to blow up. It's not going to change the fact that actually the facts are Yemen just smoked Saudi Arabia's biggest oil refinery. Those are facts. Those are things that those are absolute facts. So when I hear these stories day to day to day to day to day to day, it's like watching a soap opera. It makes me want to stick my head in a pot and a pan and bang it with a spoon because it would be less painful. I mean, just the fact that this is how things are playing out. If this truly is how poorly all of our systems are functioning, then we're in way worse shape than even Jim could think of. That's, again, Denny, how do you run a business, and you have rather large businesses, how do you run a business with this kind of nonsense going on? We need stability, and I don't see any stability. Do you?
Or no. Any of what Pocahontas wants tax-wise on your business, Denny.
Hey, Denny.
Yeah, Bill.
The tariffs, the trade war, all that is a symptom of the reaction by countries to the economic pie shrinking. I mean, the tariffs and the trade wars, they're not the cause of what's happening. They're the symptom.
Got it.
And any raving about King Dollar is the biggest. You're raving about the evidence of our total loss of the tariff contest, tariff war. Because every time we keep going up, we are in trade killed.
Jim, Trump has totally abandoned the multilateral trade deals of the past. You know, the Trans-Pacific stuff. He's gotten out, but he's chosen to make bilateral deals with countries on an individual basis so as to better protect what he sees the interests of the U.S.
Yes.
On the surface, this seems like a pretty good approach, and it flies in the face of this one world order.
Better approach than the globalist. Okay, better than the globalist. I wouldn't say it's a terrific approach, but it's better than the globalist.
I hope it's successful.
So do I, because that's the way to go about it, because then you've got chess players you can play against each other. On the globalist standpoint, you end up with one person running the show. And listeners, please remember, the strength of a currency is an anathema to the country of that currency in the definition of a tariff war. Just learn that one lesson today, and you now understand a tariff war. The strong currency loses.
Which is why Trump is screaming that he wants to devalue.
Yeah, and also why he's doing everything to maintain the appearance of the greatest economic boom in the history of man. Okay, and why he will be screaming, "Elect me, and I'm going to lower your taxes again," or if these elections, the by-elections, go his way, like they did last week, in states unusual to elect a Republican, maybe look for another tax cut before election.
Yeah, they're already.
He's going to remember that, because we're going to, gold is a war. This is the fight for your survival. You're facing psychops that would put you in fiat currency. Don't think it's easy for us. We got to go through the same thing. Except we've been, in my case, around long enough to know what's real and what isn't. I'll stay with the real.
Who holds our hands?
Nobody. Okay?
Bill,
put our hand out and gets whacked with a stick.
Bill, talking about reality, Bill, unfunded liabilities are everywhere. On a national level, it's pensions and Social Security, it's Medicare, Medicaid, it's aid to dependent children. But on the state level, the local level, it's police and fire pensions, it's teachers' pensions, it's state worker pensions. Bill, they haven't put away enough on the balance sheet to cover even half of the promises made to citizens and workers. So you talk about not being candid. My goodness, this has got to blow up at some point, Bill.
That's absolutely correct. So what's your point?
I was
sorry about that.
I was reinforcing what Jim had said. On the surface, yeah.
Tongue in cheek there.
Yeah.
I think it was great. It's good to have some fun.
Hey, I'm a plumber's kid. I can take it from a cowboy.
The point being, the system is busted. The Wile E. Coyote going off a cliff. I mean, we've been off the cliff for years. We've been off the cliff for over 10 years, since before 2008. We hit debt saturation levels in 06, early 07. So, I mean, your point about under and unfunded liabilities, I mean, that is a fact. I mean, we can't make that up. Those are facts. The entire matter of fact, there was, and I think I posted it this past week or a week and a half ago. There was a study done by a brokerage house. It was not one of the top tier brokers, but they came up with, we are now close to 2,000% of debt and promises to GDP. I mean, they came up with a number, I think, of $389 trillion of on-books debt, off-books debt, and future promises that need to be funded. On top of an economy that's, what, $20 trillion. None of it can be paid.
There's been psychological drama, Bill, it's been building. It's been my experience that people who are on pensions and get regular pensions are oblivious to the security of that pension. And
totally.
They don't have as much savings, and I think that they will be gobsmacked if those pensions devalue. And I think that socially and psychologically, I don't think they're prepared for what's coming. And that's a scary fact for me, Bill, because a lot of these are my friends. Some of them are my clients. But the pensioner...
How about somebody who's making it currently with their pension payment? They don't have a lot left over, but they're making it, and it turns out that their pension is cut by 50%. On top of that, you get a currency devaluation of 50%. And another way to say that is you get 100% move in the cost of living. So now they're at 25 real cents on the dollar. How are they going to make it? They're not.
No, they're not.
And disaster in the making.
Yeah, Dave, I can't remember what city it was you turned me on to, and I read the piece where the city just basically said, you're screwed, we're not going to pay them, and I can't remember where that was out east. It was in New Jersey.
Central Falls, Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Central Falls.
Not to mention even the Teamsters and the Central States pension. They're down to 45 cents on the dollar right now, and they'll be lucky if they can continue that based on, the underneath funding that they still have on the balance sheet. Hey, Dave, did you happen to catch that op-ed by the former New York Fed President William Dudley? I mean, it was vicious. Basically said that the Fed should blackmail Trump into halting the trade war negotiations with China. Dave, I found it incredible that a public figure would even suggest publicly that the president should be blackmailed. Did you happen to see that, or do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I absolutely saw it. And again, I get back to, is it real opposition or is it fake opposition to just keep stirring the pot? As we've talked about, everybody's off balance, Denny. I mean, even really smart people are off balance here. And they have the whole game off balance. Whenever I see everything off balance like that, I don't trust anything anybody says, because you don't know, are they saying it because they mean it, or are they saying it because it's just baiting the waters? Because, again, the Fed is supposed to be an independent entity. So by nature, the president shouldn't be out there screaming, we need zero, we need negative interest rates. I mean, that's an absurd statement. We've gone over this for how many weeks, that if you have zero interest rates, how do pension funds and insurance companies continue to do business? Because the premise of their existence is they need to find a guaranteed safe return. At 0% or negative percent interest, pensions and insurance companies go belly up. So does Donald really believe what he's saying, or is he just throwing this out there? So then I have to say, does Dudley really believe what he's saying, or is he just throwing it out there? Because it looks like a tennis match between knuckleheads, because they're both talking out of school. Are they not?
Oh,
is the
dear.
President,
yeah.
People are talking out of school. So when I see that, like you said, this is like watching a boyfriend-girlfriend at a high school argument. Neither one of them are making any sense. Neither one of them have a mandate to do what they're doing. I mean, in all of my life, I've never seen a president out there who campaigned on reining in the Fed, stopping this nonsense with low interest rates to prop up the stock market, to the minute he's elected, begging for what he said he was campaigning against. Is that not what is taking place?
Yeah, that's the conundrum. That is the idea that he wants to get rid of the Fed, and the only way he can do it is to make themselves blow up. It'll be interesting to see if he gets that done in at least next year and a half, maybe
Andrew
the next
Jackson.
6 months. Yeah, Andrew Jackson. The sixth president, the first Democrat president. I got a picture of him on my wall in my studio. And it's just to remind me that guy had 6 assassination attempts, fought them off. It was before Secret Service. I'm a fan of Andrew Jackson, that's for sure.
His portrait is on the wall in the White House now.
Yes, that is absolutely
Really?
a fact.
It's in the Oval Office.
Yep.
And he's a Democrat. That's sort of cool.
Well, so is our president.
Yeah.
Or was he a Republican, or is he?
I don't know.
He is a Trump.
Jim, let's continue on with politics for a minute. Kramer went apeshit this week when the news got out that the Wall Street was suddenly worried about the possibility of a presidency of Elizabeth Warren. And I just giggled. I mean, he went crazy. Are they not concerned about the other socialist communists that might end up on the Democrat ticket, or that would totally change the market?
The promises direct the banks. Okay.
Oh, so that's why they're going after Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, and if she took the money from the banks, transferred that money to a present political process account, and here's somebody who's taken big money from big banks and now is going supposedly to flatten them all. It's all, even that's a comic lie. But that's why they dropped dead, because if what she said she intended to do, Kramer, unfortunately, would have a newspaper stand somewhere in lower New York.
One of my partners said it's the perfect explanation of crony capitalism, that it's really not capitalism, but for goodness sakes, don't give us Elizabeth Warren. I just thought it was a temper tantrum.
Yeah, but she's one of the few that has a presidential appearance among the guys that are and the ladies that are trying for the presidency on the socialist side. I don't call them the Democratic side, socialist side.
Hey, Denny, I'm on the record, and I'll say it again. I think the entire, whatever it was, 23 people to start running for the Democratic nomination, I don't think it will be any of them. It will be someone else.
Yeah, they'll call Hillary.
If I had to guess, my guess is Michelle Obama.
That's a reasonable guess, but I think Hillary is sitting by the telephone every day.
Yeah, she's
especially in that Italian
that
art show where they have a picture of her playing with 30,000 emails on a desk, and she went to it and was signing autographs.
Hey, Bill, we got a question from a listener, and I would appreciate an explanation too. Our listener Ron, he said regarding the exchange for physical, the EFP. I'm going to quote this: does London store the gold for delivery? Do they have 4,000 tons already transferred, or do they buy it in the physical market somewhere? Do they delay delivery? Thanks. I think, Bill, how in the world does London make all this go away?
Don't know. We don't know.
It's an over-the-counter contract, Bill.
And no. We don't. There's no way to know what they have stored. We have no way to see or verify any deliveries. And the answer is no, they don't go out in the market and buy it. Otherwise, you'd see, the price of gold would have already blown sky high.
So
Bill,
your assumption
then is different than a paper derivative over the counter.
Right.
But it's a private
contract.
Wait a minute. Now, when it goes to England or when it goes to London, it's a private contract. So we're never going to see the results of that.
But
that's
it's
exactly
still
correct.
An obligation of, quote, the bankers.
So they're buying them off. They'll probably pay them higher and not deliver physical.
Right. Well, that was the story for years on the COMEX, is that the longs who were standing would get bribed 20%, 30% fiat bonuses to walk away. And they just kept playing the game. I mean, it's interesting. If you watch the movements of COMEX gold and COMEX silver, there's like no movement. I mean, they say that they've delivered metal, but none of the inventory ever moves. So how did they deliver metal? The whole thing is a scam. It is a paper fraudulent scam.
And it
sounds like a derivative to me.
Yes, yeah. That's what it is.
So it goes from transparency to opaque in one shot.
Yes. And
because of that, the public eating information and professionals spewing the information on cotton-like numbers is a waste of time.
Well, and the moment you write the check to put into your account to trade a COMEX contract, it's total opaqueness from then on.
I've got one more question for each of you. Dave, yours is about culture. Culture's a funny thing, and the changes in culture are usually so very slow that truly dramatic changes go unnoticed because they take so long to happen. They're glacial. Dave, the changes in our nation's schools towards expectations and discipline have been very gradual to, on the one hand, not too distant future, it was keep up, be good. And now it's okay that you're not learning, and you should. It's okay. Everybody's different, and there's certainly no discipline. Dave, is there any chance that our education system has become the fertile soil for the new ideas about socialism?
Yes, and it goes past socialism. Our education system has been designed, in my opinion, to homogenize society. I'm an outside-of-the-box thinker. I don't think of myself as a very well-educated person in that I never excelled in academics. It wasn't until, I was out of school a long time before I actually became curious enough to try and do my own research, to try and disprove all the things that they told me were in fact facts. Right now, the way our society functions, everybody stares at their smartphone and there's the answer for them. So I believe we're where we're at by design. And as you say, did it take a long time to get here? well, we may think it took a long time to get here, but, it really didn't take a long time to get here. And I think what it's done is it's prepared society for the things that we're talking about are going to happen. People are just going to say, oh, well, that's just the way it is. And unfortunately, that is not how it has to be. That's why we're here every weekend trying to explain to people there are alternative points of view, be it on investing, be it on politics, be it on geopolitics. So, I hope that we're helping people. Let's just put it that way.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Dave.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah.
My cousin Vinny didn't go to college either.
Yeah.
That is
all right.
my point.
Yeah. Jim, your last question of the day. I read this article this week by Adam Taggart, and he's got me turned around here, and I knew that you could help. He stated that whereas there will be inflation coming in a big way, there will be huge opportunities in real estate and housing as prices have peaked and are falling really rather quickly in many areas. He basically said that real estate is about to go on sale. Can you give me your thoughts on inflation versus deflation in real estate prices, farmland, rental properties, business properties? Sort of put this together with the inflation-deflation thing.
Well, we've been over the semantical misunderstanding of the two words, so possibly going through that is only redundancy. During deflation, there is primarily a significant failure in credit instruments, and any market which requires firm credit function is not going to fare that well. And the real estate market is highly illiquid whenever under positive or negative pressure. And the results of what's coming, I don't think in the longer term, meaning over a year or two, favor real estate prices as storehouses of value, regardless of how they're quoted in depreciated dollars. I think there'd be a better time. I don't think he's wrong, but it's not now. The inflation that we're talking about is a currency event, not a business event. It's going to happen because of credit imbalances, not necessarily deficits in this and that. What he's saying has a ring of truth to it, but like everything else in life, it's called timing. And he will be right on both points, but definitely not at the same time. Better stick with a more liquid storehouse of value that's proved itself over 2,500 years than try and flip houses. Does that answer your question?
Let me add to that, Jim. The inflation-deflation debate is going on and on. You got wackos like Harry Dent talking about deflation. You've got other people talking about hyperinflation. The bottom line is the best place to have capital during either a period of high inflation or a period of high deflation, especially when there's the amount of credit outstanding that there is now, is gold.
Bill, if you want to win this game of global thermonuclear economics, I think it's the only way you win it is by not playing.
Right. You have your capital out of the system in real God-made money.
Yeah, not playing. Okay?
All right, Bill, you've sort of led yourself into my last question pretty nicely. You mentioned last week that after gold got up into the $1,500 range, the United States retail dealers of precious metals noted that a lot of people were selling and not buying gold and silver. So were these folks just worn out waiting? Or why in the world would you think people would be net sellers in the United States? Now, this is only in the United States, but it's clearly in the United States that there's more sellers than buyers right now.
Right. Yeah. Globally, there's more buyers than sellers, obviously. I mean, just in the euro made a another all-time low versus gold, or another way to say it is gold made an all-time high versus the euro this week. So overseas, people are buying. In the U.S. for the last pretty close to a year now, there's been more retail selling than had ever been seen. And I think the reasoning behind that is you have people that are tired, burned out. You have people that were just holding their breath, and, oh, I could break even now. I just want to get out. You have people throwing in the towel, and they're doing it at exactly the wrong time.
Could there be another explanation? Could it be that they've exhausted all of their other paper assets, and for a variety of reasons, they just have to get out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the people...
Don't forget King Dollar as being the illusion of all time, having the greatest effect of all time.
Right, but
can I jump in?
We have a slow economy. I mean, we have a weak economy. People, whatever the rate is, 3.9% unemployment, that's a complete cartoon. I mean, if you look at John Williams' work, the unemployment rate is 20%. You have, what was the number, 106 million Americans not working or something like that? Or no, 149 million, I forget what the number is.
That's the U6 number, yeah.
Yeah, my point is, I think that's possible, is that people have gone through, they've sold stocks, they've sold bonds, and now they're down to...
They're tapped out.
The family jewels.
They call that cannibalization, when you sell your weakest until you have to sell your best. David, you wanted to jump in there. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I had two things to add, to both those points that you wanted to bring up. One, what you have to put into context is we've watched the stock market go from 6,000 to 27,000. So anybody who's sitting on the sidelines for the past 8 years holding gold kind of has a stick in their, back end, because they've watched everybody else just kill it. I mean, they're killing it. The market, they're killing it. They're buying houses, they're buying boats, they're buying airplanes because they killed it in the stock market. So for one, here, especially in the United States, because the other countries' stock markets have not performed as well, it's been a case of, oh, wow, my neighbor's over there playing the market and he's making a killing and I'm not. That's one of the reasons, that could potentially be why you're seeing some selling of gold here and switching into a riskier play, because they think that the stock market's going to go up forever because the brainwashing machine has been successful that was put in place from the time they went to grade school, when to get ahead, all they had to do was do what they were told. And second part, when you talk about inflation and deflation, if for anybody who has watched WeWorks, and I have for quite a while, I'm pretty familiar with the game they're trying to play, which is to try and suck up all the real estate that they can in New York, in London, and San Francisco, and turn around and break it into parcels and, re-rent it out. That is the most insane venture to play at the top of a market cycle. If you told me you played that at the bottom of the market cycle, I'd say you would have a chance of it happening. They had put valuations on this thing that were nosebleed. Uber, Lyft have obviously proven that these unicorns are truly unicorns. They don't exist. If you're a money-losing company like that, you are never going to turn it around because you've dug a hole that's so damn deep. So you take a company like WeWorks, and what you have to put in context is if we go into the downturn that we're talking about here, you're going to see the real estate market take a major, major hit. Let's say 50%, but let's just say 25% so we can do a sake of argument. If WeWorks is the largest owner of real estate in New York City, in London, in San Francisco, and these other major places, and the real estate market turns down 25%, what happens to their leverage position? And then the rents are going to collapse. Then the rents are going to collapse at least 25%. And I'm throwing 25% out there. That's a low number. I lived through real estate crashes when I was loaded with the stuff to my gills. And 25%, you would have been happy if it only went down 25%. I had commercial office buildings that went down 75%. Vacancy rates of 50% are nothing. So, yeah, you could see some serious, serious deflation in a lot of assets. And at the same time, if you kill the dollar because you keep lowering interest rates and we want to lower the dollar's value so we could be manufacturing again, then what are people going to buy foreign products with? So we have a real catch-22 here, kids.
Well, Jim, have you got anything else you want to share before we let everybody go?
Well, every week we have is a circus with both terror and comedy. I'd say that we just let next week take care of itself and reanalyze as we do each week, talking to our listeners next Saturday.
I appreciated your comments about conviction without patience, Jim. We started right off with that for people who are a bit worn out. It's always about patience. Well,
it's a hard thing, but your emotions are always wrong. If you go against your emotions on a long-term basis, you're always right.
We make emotional decisions and we try to back them up with logic, and it doesn't always work that way.
No, it doesn't. And taking from Bert and Jesse as being the two greatest investors that ever lived, as well as good traders, you got to know you're right. You have to be right, and you have to sit tight.
Bill, you're the last one. Good writings this week, my brother. You still amaze me. As nasty as you are to me, I still appreciate your writings. Good stuff.
Thanks.
Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, just some groundkeeping stuff. We had the site was down for close to 24 hours. We were changing the servers over. And in that 24 hours, I definitely got more than 250 emails. And I had people that emailed me 5, 6, 7, 8 dozen times. When's it going to come up? When's it going to come up? A couple weeks ago, I guess it was 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, we didn't get the posting up for our weekly call until Sunday. And I was just blown away with the amount of emails that came in. Nobody can answer them. And I just want to ask people, please be courteous. Don't email me five or 10 times on the same thing, because it's just irritating. This coming week, I'm going to be traveling. The call won't be out until at least Sunday, and the following week it may be out early. It's hard to say, but I'm not this week, but the following week, I'm going to be traveling. I'm actually taking a vacation. I haven't taken a vacation since February or March, and believe it or not, when I mentioned back then that I'm going to be on a vacation, won't have email for a few days during that time, you can't imagine how many people emailed me saying, have a nice vacation, but here's my question.
Yeah, have a nice vacation, but are you going to take out my trash? Yeah.
Well, the point being, now that you're on vacation, now you can really pay attention to my question.
And oh, boy. What's a vacation? It's like, what's retirement?
Anyway, that was, and just so people understand, that was kind of my, I made the comment, who holds our hands? That's what we do, is we hold people's hands day in and day out. But be courteous to us.
Well, guys, I love all three of you. You're unique in so many ways. Bill, you're still a butthead, but Dave and Jim, I really do like you guys. So.
Thank you. I'd agree with you, but I'm scared of Bill.
I'm scared of Bill, too.
Hey, Denny.
Yes. Yes, sir.
What was the saying? I'm not a butthead, it's just my face.
It's just
hey, and I may look stupid, but Lordy. I'm not. Okay? Remember that, too, Denny.
You guys are all good ones. We'll talk to you next week. We'll figure out when we're going to do the recording, and I'll keep you all posted, okay?
All right.
Thanks, Denny.
You got it. Thanks,
you
guys.
take care.
Bye.